Welcome to All That Catholic Stuff. I'm Chris Bray.
You just need to know you are the beloved child of God.
Why do Catholics listen to the Pope, and where is that in the Bible? Why is it that some guy in Rome can tell you Catholics what to think and what to believe? I get this question all the time. And simply put, it's because that's the way that God set it up. What? Well, Pope is a Latin word for Papa, or Father. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, Jesus asks the apostles, he says to them, "Who do men say that I am?" And they began to murmur among themselves, and they start saying, well, some say Elijah, and some say John the Baptist. And Jesus stops them. He says, no, who do you say that I am? And Peter, of all people, pipes up and he says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus, he says, "Blessed are you, Simon, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." And then he goes on to say, "For you are Peter, and upon this rock I'm going to build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Now, what is Jesus talking about? Because people a lot smarter than me have been arguing for hundreds of years about, well, what is this rock? Is it Peter? Is it Peter's confession of faith? Or is it Jesus? And then we start mixing all of these metaphors about cornerstone. But when we get back to the text, it actually becomes really simple. See, when Jesus first meets Peter, his name isn't Peter, it's actually Simon. The first time Jesus meets Simon, Jesus says, "From now on, you shall be called Peter." Peter wasn't a name. Peter means rock. From now on, you shall be called rock. And then in Matthew chapter 16, Jesus says, "Blessed are you, Simon." And then he goes on to say, "You are rock. And upon this rock, I'm going to build my church." You see this poetic play on words. Jesus renames Simon to rock, and he's going to build his church on a rock. That's pretty incredible. Peter is given this superiority among the other apostles. Well, how do we arrive at that? Where does that come from? Well, if you've never noticed this before, you should maybe go back and read Isaiah chapter 22, because Jesus quotes that passage of scripture almost verbatim when he's speaking with Peter here in Matthew chapter 16. See, in Isaiah 22, there is a second in command to the king, a royal steward or a prime minister of the kingdom of David. And this prime minister was to be a father to the inhabitants. Right? He'll have this robe and he will rule over their nations, and he's given the authority of the king that whatever door is open will remain open. Whatever door that is shut will remain shut. He's given the keys of the kingdom. Now in Matthew chapter 16, Jesus gives Peter the rock upon what he's going to build his church. He's given him the keys of the kingdom, so that whatever is bound on earth will be bound in heaven. Whatever is loosed on earth will be loosed in heaven. Jesus gives Peter this office of royal steward for his kingdom. He gives him the keys to rule in the king's absence. He gives him his own authority. That's pretty cool. We can see when we read through the New Testament so many instances that point to the superiority of Peter and his office above the other apostles. For example, in Matthew chapter 10, Peter is called the chief apostle, or the first among the apostles. Right, we see whenever the apostles' names are listed, it's always Peter, James, and John, or Peter and the rest of the apostles. We see that Peter is the one who is entrusted to shepherd Jesus's flock. But some people still come back and they argue. They say, well, what about all these bad popes across history? And I gotta tell you, there's been a number of really bad ones. You know what I find so fascinating? That in 2,000 years, there has not been one essential teaching of the Catholic Church that has ever been changed in that time, even in the midst of these bad popes. And all we have to do is look to our first pope, Peter, and see that, well, he denied Christ. He took his sword out and he cut a guy's ear off. He stood condemned in Galatians chapter 2. And this is our first pope. In Jude chapter 1, verse 3, it tells us that the faith was once and for all handed down to the saints. See, it's not the Pope's job to come up with new doctrine, and actually he can't. The Pope's job is to guard and protect the deposit of faith so that in every generation we will have a sure way to know truth. This is why we have the papacy, so that we can come to know the fullness of truth that God has for us. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, I have 4 things for you to do. The first one is to like my Facebook page. The second one is to share this video. The third one is to go to my website, chrisbraymusic.com, and subscribe to receive all that Catholic stuff to your inbox. And the fourth one is to consider bringing me to your faith community for a parish mission, a night of worship, or a youth event.
You just need to know you are the love and child of God.